Hey, this is Ken M.
Padawan J.
Coach Duffy.
From the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast. Every week, the ODPH is talking sports, movies, TV, comics, and more. It's always a parlay of topics on each episode. You can find the ODPH on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you find great podcasts, such as the one you're listening to right now. Don't forget to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com, where you can find the links to all of the ODPH social media accounts, links to the bands whose music you hear each week on the show, hashtag 607 podcast info, and parlay points, our companion blog section of the show. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. Now get back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Hi there, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm John, and we're from Pina Comics. As we dive into your favorite pop culture topics, we may just
Occasionally
use language that could be considered
globaloney.
what? No, I mean
Oh, foul.
exactly. Offensive.
No doubt. Crass.
You bet your ass.
Sophisticated.
What? No. Anyways, you get it by now. It's mostly just
Gutter talk.
And one more thing. Watch out for spoilers. Sometimes we drop them like trousers. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Some films are destined to be known as pure trash, whether through bad critical reviews, poor audience scores, or even troubled productions. These films live with the brand of being terrible. We here at The Pint know that all of these films cannot be as bad as reputed. Some are actually just so-so, while others are actually pretty good. Our mission? Watch these films and determine if they deserve their legacy of awfulness and report our findings back to you. This is Trash, Tolerable, or Treasure.
Are you okay or what, Uncle Wax?
Lenny, I've always considered you the Dutch elm disease in my family tree. But this time, nephew, you did fine.
Well, if this is your first time listening to Pina Comics, thank you for listening to Pina Comics and for joining me, John, and my co-host over there, the Manster, aka Lloyd. If this is your, whatever 50th or 175th or 190th time, whatever it is, thank you for coming back repeatedly.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening and sticking with us.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey so far. If you heard Andrew Morgan, the host of the wonderful podcast, the Nomcast, at the beginning of this episode, he explained to you that it is a trash, tolerable, or treasure episode. And if you've heard enough of these, you know just what Andrew said. We're going to take a movie that's got a bad reputation, and we're going to say whether or not it deserves that bad reputation. Manster, what's new with you, man? Let's start off with us. Let's figure out what's going on. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Nothing new that was different from last time.
No.
Still doing okay. Hanging out, living life.
Living
large.
Living La Vida Loca, as
yes.
Ricky Martin.
I always thought, yep.
Do you remember when Ricky Martin was big? They always called him Ricky Martin. Like that was how they pronounced it. That's how they pronounced it. And it's like, it's Martin. Like just because he might be Latin doesn't mean Martin suddenly becomes pronounced a different way.
Martin.
Yeah. They always said like Ricky Martin. And it's like, that's fucking Martin. That's just Martin.
It's just Martin.
It's just Martin. So, our guest tonight, right? So we like to have people on. We do these triple T's. And our guest tonight, I expounded about this guest a couple months ago on our first episode of 2021, where we talked about the films of 1991. And I regaled the audience with a story of my youth in Middletown, Connecticut, and going to Middletown High School. Lloyd, do you know the mascot for Middletown, Connecticut, Middletown High School? Do you know what it is? And I'm gonna give you a hint. It's fucking stupid. Sorry. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't recall what it is.
What was your high school and your high school mascot, Lloyd?
My high school mascot was Indian. I don't know if they're still the Indians, but that's what it was.
Okay, so a more traditional yet extremely racist what probably wouldn't fly today. Okay,
just like the Farmington are Indians, but they've already nixed that, and we're currently as a town voting on a new mascot.
Okay. And what high school did you go to? What town were you in?
Newington.
So the Newington Indians. Okay.
Blue and gold.
Well, in Middletown, Connecticut, where I went to school with our guest Joe. Joe Doherty, who I knew way back when, and we talked about him. He's the one that explained the Terminator 2 trailer to me, if you remember that little section there.
Yes.
Joe, before we even introduce you, do you want to tell Lloyd what our mascot was and what is still the mascot in Middletown, Connecticut?
The Blue Dragons.
The Blue Dragon, right?
Okay.
Now, Dragon is wicked cool, right? Dragon on its own is wicked cool. I never understood why you had to give it a color, and especially a color that you really have never associated with a dragon. I think Berlin, Connecticut, I think they're the Green Dragons, or there's a Green Dragons out there in Connecticut. That kind of makes a little sense, because when you think of dragon, I think you think green. But
what were your school colors?
It was blue. It was like navy and like powder blue, I think, right?
And some white too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe, as a matter of fact,
Blue Devils.
Joe, as a matter of fact, another story about Joe that I did not know even when I was friends with him was I remember going to like maybe my freshman or sophomore year high school homecoming game on a Saturday afternoon. I remember going with a bunch of friends and being in the stands. And I remember like at one point seeing Joe on the sidelines playing football. I didn't realize Joe was on the football team because Joe was kind of like me. Joe was kind of like a nerdy film guy. You know what I mean? And we knew each other. We weren't like best of friends, but we were very friendly. But I just never knew Joe. Joe, you were on the football team.
I didn't join it till my senior year, so that homecoming game would have been your junior year. Oh, okay. And I never did. I fashioned myself an athlete, but I had to stop playing baseball. Played golf on the Middletown High golf team. But I just finally took up football as a senior, and I actually played in college, or should I say I was on the team in college. So I took my career as far as I could take it.
All right. Well, far. I have this distinctly weird memory of maybe either leaving the game or walking, to go meet friends and seeing you standing there on the sideline. Like I remember you had your helmet like under your arm, and I remember thinking, is that fucking Joe Doherty? Like I didn't know this guy was on the fucking football team.
Yeah, that surprised a lot of people, I think, and. At least you missed the part where I was like walking in the wrong direction to the other huddle in one place. So maybe you left the game early.
Rookie move.
So I actually kind of know why it's the Blue Dragons, supposedly. Some history teacher told me the story that they had a meeting years ago before they chose that in the late 80s, I guess, or the mid 80s when they consolidated high schools, I'm thinking.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson and Middletown High consolidated and they picked a new mascot.
And so I think there was a group of students and a group of adults that were choosing the mascot, and they didn't agree. But then the adults chose dragons, and the students liked it but didn't want to concede, so they added the blue so they'd have something from both sides to meet in the middle. So bipartisan support for the mascot, or as a bi-generational.
I feel better about it. It makes more sense to me now that a kid's hand had to do with the blue part of it, at least. Yeah. So Joe,
hey, John,
yes.
Did you play any high school sports?
I did not, and I can tell you why. I'm a huge sports fan. I loved football, and it's embarrassing, but it's true. I kind of from my heart of hearts wanted to try out for the football team. My father played high school football, but I also didn't care enough about my grades to keep them to the levels that I probably would have to keep them to maintain on it. I was a fucking slacker, man. I was a slacker in school. This probably explains my current predicament 30 years into a retail job. But in all honesty, I used to think about that all the time. And I used to think, well, if I try out for the team, there's going to be like some pretty severe, this is what you should do. This is what you got to do. You got to keep your grades up. And I was literally coasting. I did really poorly in my freshman year because I just hated school. I was in all advanced classes because I was a pretty smart kid up until through 8th grade. I still was pretty smart, but I didn't apply myself in any way, shape, or form. And I was put in all advanced classes in 9th grade. I almost stayed back in 9th grade. I had to go to summer school. So when they dropped me to the non-advanced classes, I was kind of the smartest kid from 10th grade on in all my classes, but I did the bare minimum. But because I went to summer school, I got ahead of my credits, and my guidance counselor, I think, wanted to get rid of me. He told me you could graduate in January and walk with your friends in June. And the way I looked at it was I can graduate in January and have to go get a job early, or I could fuck off for 5 months in school.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. But kids, if you're a kid and you happen to listen to Pint of Comics, first of all, you probably fucking shouldn't, because I say stuff like that. But if you are listening, do not take any of this to heed. Do not listen to Joe, listen to Lloyd.
Do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah. Exactly. So yes, there was a part of me that I would have loved to have been on the football team, and I was in classes with there was a lot of fucking really good players in that were in my grade. The DeMont Highsmith. Remember DeMont Highsmith? Joe?
I remember DeMont.
Scored 5 touchdowns in one game. He was like the real life Al Bundy. He was like a fucking superstar in our town. And these are guys I knew. But yeah, it was not something that was going to work out for me.
I mean, the Highsmith brothers, there were 3 total.
Yes.
It was Donald in my grade and the older one. I forget his name, Desmond maybe, but he played over at Syracuse briefly and ended up being a star in Rhode Island. So the whole family was like Middletown royalty. Yep. Middletown cared a lot about football. Middletown, at least back then, was like Texas level of football interest. It seemed like the only sport that got any money in Middletown was football.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They definitely won a state championship maybe my senior year. I don't remember what year, but there was one of those championships. I'm not sure what it was, but one of the high school championships they definitely won. So, but Joe, you've now translated from the football world into the world that essentially the last couple of years of your life have had to have been pretty rough, because the profession that you've eased into, as we've been told by our last administration, didn't exist anymore. Joe, you're a scientist, right?
Exactly. I am. I've been a scientist since I got out of college, if you count. So that'd be, I guess, 28 years, right?
Yeah.
27 years. And
like what field?
Yeah. Well, I'm an organic chemist. So the easiest way to think about that is a drug maker, right? Walter White is an organic chemist. Basically I went to grad school to become a drug maker. Actually, I really went to become a professor at a small school. I used to teach a lot. And organic chemistry is basically the med school weed out class. So I had there's more pre-med students usually than there are chemistry students in a class. And so I did that. And then I found my way I did a lot of research, and most of my friends actually live in either Boston or New Jersey, because that's where all the pharmaceutical companies are. And it's a very stressful industry. So I kind of went the route. I worked for the government, and long ago I've been out of the lab, but I'm still a scientist at heart. And I do a lot of scientisty stuff, but I also I'm a bureaucrat now, I guess, partially. So
there you go.
And yes, any administration that doesn't support the sciences makes my job a lot harder, no matter what.
Well, we believe in science here at Pina Comics, and so much so that we've been, me and Lloyd had discussed this. We've been looking for our own go-to scientist, Joe. So I would like to have you be the first man of Pina Comics Sciences. If we ever have a scientific question, and I'm going to lump you in with every other scientist on Earth. I know that
we'll just have to call you in on every episode.
Every time we have a question about whether Superman could speak in space. Right, which we'll get to. I know maybe that's not your field, but I'm going to lump you in with all sciences. So thank you, Joe. And is there a PhD involved? Do we get to call you Dr. Joe at any point, or?
Well, nobody. You can, if you say Dr. Doherty, you should be talking to my dad. I am a PhD, but I don't like to be called doctor. But I only do it when I sign off on my emails, so people know that I mean business when I'm emailing them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you can call me doctor, but don't call me doctor.
Okay, don't call him doctor. All right. So before we get into so again, this is a triple T. You heard us joke about Superman a second ago. We are going to be talking about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. All right. We're going to get into that in a second, though. But before that, we've gotten to know Joe a little bit, his history with me. Why don't we move into the 5 questions Lloyd has that are always so much fun and generally seem to revolve around Starburst somehow. I thought about that. I thought about that. I didn't prep for Starburst, though. So all right.
We'll see.
All right, Joe. First question. Can you actually create enough torque as a single body in outer space to hurl something towards the sun?
Wow. So I'm not an astrophysicist.
Joe, remember, we said we were going to lump you in with all sciences.
Well, I will say, if you want a serious answer, I always say, I know what I know, but I also know where to look and get an answer. So, but I have to have a snap answer. I'm going to have to say yes, but you'd have to have something with like a space station spinning to launch you into the sun. So,
right, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, here comes your real questions.
Okay.
Andromeda Strain or Westworld?
Does it count the new Westworld?
Well, whichever one you're familiar with. I'm talking Michael Crichton movies, but yes. You may not have seen those. I
have not seen the originals, but I'll go with Westworld because I like the concept a little bit better.
It's pretty cool. You got to watch the Andromeda Strain. That's a great movie.
I've heard, it's one of these old movies on my list, and I'll check that one out too.
Yeah, and not to mention we're living in the Andromeda Strain, so
right?
You don't have to rush.
Yeah, but Michael Crichton's a climate denier, so maybe I don't want to read his books anymore.
All right, X-Files or Lost?
I'll go X-Files.
Wrong answer.
I dabbled in both. Well, can I change?
No.
I want you guys to like me.
Oh, we like
whatever
you.
Whatever you want, man.
No, I dabbled in X-Files, so better. I did some Lost. It got a little frustrating, and I gave it up. And I gave it up because I didn't have enough VCR space to tape Lost and Smallville at the same time.
Oh,
so I decided I switched back to Smallville, which was my first love at that time. So I'll go with X-Files.
Back to Superman again.
I did watch all of Lost, but I did not make it through the last 2 seasons of X-Files myself. But that was a great show. John, you didn't like X-Files?
X-Files is extremely hit or miss. Okay. There are great episodes, and then there's like garbage.
Yep.
Garbage, great. There's one in particular that everybody talks about called Home. That's with the inbred family, and
I know exactly what you mean.
But that's one of the best hours of television of all time. But then there's other ones that are just like, eh. There's a great episode. I don't remember the name of it, but it's told from Scully's point of view and Mulder's point of view. And there's a vampire in a small town. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember.
So Scully has the hots for the local sheriff. So when she's telling her story, it's Luke Wilson. He's very handsome. And then Mulder is jealous of her liking him. So when he tells the story, it's an ugly dude. Like, it's just, it was smart television at the time. But again, there are great episodes, but it doesn't hold up especially when you get, what was it, like 11 seasons with those couple of those redo seasons they did later.
Oh yeah,
on.
they had that redo.
Yeah, no
that
thanks.
Was weird. All right, Joe. Tool or Metallica?
Ooh. You know what? That's a tough call. I'm going to go with Tool because I've actually seen Tool in concert. So I'm not a big concert guy, but the last concerts I went to before the pandemic was the fall of 2019 with my buddies, or 2019 was in crack of time with my buddy Zach, who's a big Tool fan. That was just unbelievable.
I've never seen Tool, but I love them both. But.
Oh, it was, yeah. I mean, oh my God, that was great. It's probably not something I would regularly do, but just he invited me. And that was that was amazing. That was just amazing to me. I've never heard drums like that.
Yeah. All right. Tasha Yar or 7 of 9?
7 of 9, because I don't know who Tasha Yar is off the top of my head.
Oh,
she got a lot of sci-fi questions here. And
go ahead, John.
So 7 of 9 was the Borg from Voyager, and Tasha Yar was on the first 2 or 3 seasons of Next Generation. She was Bing Crosby's daughter in real life. She was the tall blonde, and then they wrote her off. They killed her.
She was the mother in the Pet Sematary movie too.
Yes, and she was on The Walking Dead. She was
okay. Then I have So I'm a big fan. I love the first Pet Sematary. I actually saw that in the theaters. Yeah. I knew the name I couldn't remember which Star Trek that was. Okay, now I know exactly who you're talking. The actress is Denise something.
Yes, Denise Crosby. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, no, I love the original Pet Sematary. So.
All right, last one, and there's no sci-fi here. Well, maybe actually. Bugles or Munchos?
Bugles for sure. Nothing like shaped.
Yeah, can you explain what those are made of?
No, because I need the ingredients. So yeah, that's one thing I do a lot for friends is I read labels and interpret them, because they're like, what's this chemical? It's going to kill you. I'm like, nah, it's probably not. It's just in your food.
Yeah. So plus with Bugles, you can stick them right on your fingertip.
That's what I like. It's like.
Yeah, Munchos. What the fuck is a Muncho all about?
They're so crunchy though. Salty, addictive flavor to them.
It's all substance and no like flavor or style. You know what I mean? And Bugles are, man, there's a lot of those type of chips that were you loved as a kid. My wife gets me like these, like, the big bags with the little bags for like lunches. And she got me one recently that had Funyuns in it. When I was a kid, I loved Funyuns. I ate a bag of Funyuns one night. Like I was hungry. So I just grabbed like a little bag of Funyuns are fucking garbage. Like they're not good. I don't know.
No. Yeah. I'm not a fan.
But
Funyuns are just weird, man.
They're just different.
It's not real onion flavor. I mean, not that you think it'd be real, but it's, it's as real. It's as oniony as like grape soda is grape. Like they should just, I've always said this, they should just call grape soda purple, because
purple soda.
Purple. You would just go, I love purple. People would, if you stop calling it grape soda, people who liked it would still like it. and just call it purple, because it doesn't taste anything like a fucking grape. Nothing. Not at all.
If you want a fun or boring chemistry effect, it depends how you think about it, is that there's actually flavor chemistry people that do that for a living, that make up these flavors like grape, and it's a certain type of chemical that is known to smell a different way. And, you can make any kind of flavor, whether it smells right or not. So there's a certain flavor for grape that goes into that. Somebody developed that in a lab. Same with as when I was in school, just one of the fun projects they did when I was in undergrad was just to make the smell of bananas. So the one that'd be banana flavor, and it smells just like bananas. I mean, I wouldn't put it in my mouth, but yeah. So although someone in the lab is doing that for me. Yeah.
What's that, Master?
I said, I guess somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody's got to do everything, Lloyd. That's how the world moves. So, all right. But let's talk about Superman 4. This is what we're here for. We've all watched it in the last couple of days. If you're listening to the show and you want to pause it right now and go watch Superman 4, it's currently on HBO Max. If you're listening to the show 4 years from now, I cannot vouch for that. If you found this episode in a time capsule, it might not be on HBO Max anymore. Kind of the nuts and bolts real quick. Before we talk about Superman 4, though, I do want to because one of the things we do on these episodes is we kind of try to deconstruct a little bit of what might have gone wrong if this is a trash movie. First things first, I'm going to start with Joe. Were you a fan from childhood of the original Superman, the movie? Was this something that was important to you?
You know what? I loved it. So actually, I think the first one, though, I saw was Superman 2, because I wasn't old enough probably to see the first one original in the movie theater. So I remember seeing the first one was like 5 or 6. The second one was 5 or 6 in the theater. And back then, that's really all we had, right? There were no other superhero movies until Tim Burton's Batman. So I was always excited to see Superman when it came out. And this one, too, at the time I saw in the theater, I was pretty excited for it.
I'm going to echo Joe. I think I saw Superman 2 first. I remember seeing it with my parents in the drive-in, like on the beach somewhere, Westport or somewhere like that. I have this weird memory, but I do remember.
I saw it at the beach, too.
Did you really?
Down in Maryland, the Ocean City. Yeah, I saw it with my aunt. My parents went to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had to go see Superman 2 because I guess they wouldn't let me into. Even though that's PG, I guess I would have scared me to death to see faces melting. So
yeah, well, I mean, you would have won either way, though. Raiders of the Lost Ark, despite Lloyd's opinions, it's a fantastic movie. Lloyd, was Superman the movie? Was it a big one for you as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, like Joe said, it was basically the only superhero movie at the time. I did like Superman. I don't recall seeing it in the theater, so I'm pretty sure it was just VHS tape. And Superman 2 as well. I mean, I think I liked Superman 2 even more than the first one.
A lot of people do. I mean, Superman 1, Superman the movie is a fantastic origin movie. It's a fantastic, it's a great story. Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor. You get like this fully rounded cast. But in the end, he doesn't punch anybody. You know what I mean? Nobody punches him back. Superman 2 is where they said, okay, we have to move this into, he's got to fight someone territory, and they give you a trio of great villains, the Kryptonians that were imprisoned in the first film. First film and the second film famously were kind of filmed at the same time. And then Richard Donner was fired from the second film. There's a whole thing behind that, but we're talking about 4. We're going to even skip past 3 when Richard Pryor shows up. So you guys have a fandom of the original Superman film. So we obviously get Superman, we get Superman 2, and then we get Superman 3, which came out in 1983. So you get 3 movies right there. There's a weird credit at the beginning of Superman 4 that says Superman, I believe it was the Superman motion picture was initiated by Alexander Salkind. Alexander and Ilya Salkind were the producers of the Superman, the original movie, and they made the first 3, and they also made Supergirl, which came out in 1984. And by the time Superman 3 and 4 and Supergirl came out, they had seen some pretty dwindling returns, right? Superman 1 and 2 did really well. Superman 1, did really well. I mean, this is considered a all-time classic. Many people point to Christopher Reeve flying as being one of the greatest effects they'd ever seen up until that point. I mean, the tagline was, "You will believe a man can fly," and it's right. It's true. But by the time we get to 3, it's getting a little long in the tooth. They can't determine what's going on. They jam Richard Pryor into it. Robert Vaughn is this weird villain. It just really doesn't work. Supergirl really doesn't work. Christopher Reeve was supposed to do a cameo in Supergirl to try to give it a push. He refused to do it. So the Salkinds, who were the producers of these things, decided, that's it, I'm done. and we're going to sell off the Superman franchise because they own the movie rights to this to a pretty notorious film group, Canon. All right.
Canon Films.
First thing I'm going to tell you about Canon Films is if you have not seen it, I recommend to both of you guys and to all the listeners out there. I saw it on Amazon Prime. I think it was free last year. There is a documentary called Electric Boogaloo, which came out in 2014, which is the story of Canon Films. All right. Have either of you guys seen this?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't, but I'm going to watch it because I love Canon Films. I love Golan and Globus because the ninja movies are still my favorite from back then. So like there's only so much criticism I'll accept for their way of making films.
Yeah, well, they had a way. They were, a couple of Israeli brothers or cousins. I'm sorry. That one was the businessman and one was the kind of the auteur. Menahem Golem and Yorm Globus. They sound like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villains, Gorham and Globus.
It does.
It certainly doesn't sound like real names, but it is real name. So they sell it off in the mid 80s to Canon. And Canon had a pretty, I guess they had a pretty set way of doing things. Canon would at any point make 25 to 30 movies were being made at a clip. So over here, Chuck Norris is making Invasion USA. Over here, they're making Enter the Dragon, Revenge of the Dragon. They got Sho Kazuki doing shit over here. They got this guy, and they gave no special consideration to any of these movies. So it wasn't like, okay, Invasion USA is the special one and we're going to make no, they were all pretty much like, we're just going to throw you enough money to make these movies. And that's what ended up happening with Superman 4. If Superman 4 gets thrown into the mix and they say, okay, it's 1986, let's bring the Superman franchise back. We own the rights. Let's do this. Story is already written. All right. So the story was written by Christopher Reeve. You might know him. We'll get to him in a second. Now, from what I've read, I don't know if you guys read the same thing. His main part of the story was the nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I read.
That was his idea. This movie should be about Superman disarming the world of nukes. Okay. Wonderful. They bring in a couple of screenwriters, Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal. These guys work as a pair. Some of the movies you may know that they've done otherwise. The Legend of Billie Jean. Fair. What was that? The one with Helen Slater and Christian Slater. They're not related. That was on HBO every day of my childhood. I saw that 1,000 times. Star Trek 6, which made my top 5 of 1991. Star Trek 6. The Mighty Joe Young remake in 1998. And they apparently have a penchant for apes because they also wrote the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie. So these guys have done other stuff. Joe, are you a fan of any of those? Legend of Billie Jean, Star Trek 6?
So Legend of Billie Jean is definitely one of those movies so I didn't have HBO as a kid, but I would go to my grandma's house and see it on there, and it stuck in my head for years. So I probably, back when I could rent Netflix nonstop, DVDs delivery, I got Legend of Billie Jean and watched it finally. So like any kind of 80s movie like that, I'll just check out because it was this mysterious thing on HBO that I only could see when I went to my grandma's.
Lloyd, have you ever seen Legend of Billie Jean?
I did a long time ago, but as soon as you said that, my mind went to Norma Jean. I've completely lost whatever it was.
Legend of Billie Jean, fair is fair was the statement. Young girl and her family go on the lam. The girl's bike is destroyed by a rich kid and he won't pay for it. And it becomes a much bigger deal than it should be. But there's a connection. Do you know what the connection between Legend of Billie Jean and Supergirl is, Lloyd?
No.
Joe, do you have this one?
I think the same actress, right? Because you already mentioned it was Helen Slater.
Helen Slater played Supergirl in the Supergirl movie. So Christopher Reeve gets together with these guys, decides this is what they're going to do. Now, did you read, Lloyd, who the original director, who was actually hired for this movie and then was fired because Christopher Reeve didn't get along with him? Did you read that?
They didn't get along. It was Wes Craven.
Wes Craven. So Wes Craven of A Nightmare on Elm Street and Last House on the Left and Swamp Thing. Funny, Swamp Thing, another DC character. Wes Craven was the first director who was actually going to work on Superman 4. Do you think, Joe, that a Wes Craven directed Superman 4 would have been a little bit more horrific, or do you think he would have just been kind of a gun for hire?
I think he could know how to do a gun for hire. It's tough to think of what could you do. Maybe the what we talk about, the fight scenes or something might have been a little more graphic.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe a comparable analogy would be David Lynch doing Dune. I don't have the complaints, but then having somebody squeeze out a pus from a zit is a David Lynch thing, not a Dune thing. So you wonder if Wes Craven would have done that with the Superman, where some one of his have the guy from Hills Have Eyes be one of the villains or something.
Yeah, I almost pictured Nuclear Man being much more Nuclear Man much more rapey in that after Hills Have Eyes.
Whatever it was, it would have been better.
Well,
with Wes Craven.
Don't play your cards yet.
Yeah.
I'm not playing cards.
They hired a pro, man. They went out and they got Sidney J. Furie.
Yeah, they did.
Sidney J. Furie, who is known for directing a 1985 or 86 film that I saw like 3 times in the movie theaters. Jason Gedrick and Louis Gossett Jr. are Iron Eagle. Okay, you know that when
Lots
you're
of
flying,
Iron Eagle movies.
Oh, he did, yeah, Iron Eagle 2, and then I think he came back for 4. And then if you want to go completely the opposite way, Sidney J. Furie a few years after that directed Ladybugs, starring Rodney Dangerfield as the coach of a girls soccer team that Jonathan Brandis had to dress up like a girl to infiltrate and play on. And so this is Sidney J. Furie's body of work. They get him in. Go ahead, Joe.
So Ladybugs, the connection, my cousin was an extra in there. She's a soccer player and got to be in there. And my aunt was in the stands for filming. So like my younger cousin was making so much noise, the director started screaming at everybody. My aunt was trying to muzzle my little cousin while my other cousin was just playing soccer for fun while they're shooting.
You are the first guest on Planet Comics on any kind of one of our movie shows that's cousin was yelled at by the director of the film that we're talking about, Joe. So that's a pretty
connection. That's
a connection. So they start getting this thing together. And the original idea with this film, $36 million, right? $36 million is what they could have done this movie with. And Golem and Globus, after fighting off Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo, and Michelangelo, after a long day of fighting off Ninja Turtles, slashed the budget. Lloyd, you know the number they slashed it to?
To $17 million.
$17 million. Now, like, that's obviously, that's about half or a little bit above half. They take that down, and now you still have to make this movie. Now, one of the complaints Christopher Reeve always had about this film was that the budget was slashed. They would normally film these movies, Richard Donner would film in big places. If they had a scene in New York City, it took place in New York City. This movie was filmed almost entirely in England. One of the first things I didn't realize at all I have not seen this since I was a kid. I have not seen Superman 4 since I was a kid. I didn't realize especially how they do not try to hide the fact that Metropolis is just fucking New York City. Like there is, I get it. It's a little bit older. And like in today's day and age, they might CG a couple buildings out. But like when they show you the outline of Manhattan, from the sky right off the bat, you're like, they're not even going to try to tell us this isn't New York City. I don't know.
Empire State Building right there.
Yeah. The Statue of Liberty. Yeah. It was all kind of shocking. So this thing was filmed between August of 86 and January of 87. It was released on July 24th of 1987. So that was a little bit of the nuts and bolts. Oh, by the way, I had a list here I do want to read off. Canon Films. Here's just a little selection of some of the films that they put out. New Year's Evil, which Larry played on a watch party a couple weeks ago. I don't know, were you there for that one, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think I saw the part of that one.
Yeah,
too.
Were you there?
Did it have a dance party in it?
It was like a telethon. The killer was gonna kill someone on every hour, and that was not good. Hercules with Lou Ferrigno, which my dad took me to see in the theater. I saw the Italian Hercules in the theaters with my dad. Bolero. We know Bolero. Who did you see naked in Bolero, Joe? Do you remember?
Oh, shoot, what's her name? I'm spacing. You tell me, come.
Yes.
Oh, Derek.
Yes.
I've never seen it. I need to go back.
I've honestly never seen it either, but I know enough from when I was a kid to know that she was naked in that. American Ninja. I think Joe was kind of referring to that a second ago. I mentioned Invasion USA, Chuck Norris against all the bad guys. The terrible, horrible, shitty Raiders of the Lost Ark ripoff starring Richard Chamberlain, King Solomon's Mines. Okay, that's a Canon film. And then the last two, our friends over at the Mobile Horror Companion, they wrongly claim this all the time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. They claim it's better than 1. There's no fucking way. It's a weird movie. It's fun. It's a Canon movie. And then I had to throw this in at the very end because this is another one that when I was a kid, I loved. I feel like if I watched it now, I'd have to lobotomize myself. Sylvester Stallone as truck driver Lincoln Hawk in what, Joe?
Over the Top.
The world's first and only arm wrestling movie, right? For some reason, we had to do this. We had to have an arm wrestling movie. And I loved it. I saw that at the Middletown Movie House probably 3 weekends in a row when I was like 11 years old. Me and my friends were probably high-fiving. We were probably arm wrestling every other second.
I probably did too.
Yeah, you had to.
There was multiple Stallone movies too, right? I think they did Cobra.
I think Cobra as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I watched Cobra maybe like a year and a half ago. I own it. I bought it on Blu-ray, probably at like a Big Lots for $4. And, I'd seen it when I was a kid and I loved it. That is not a good movie. But I will tell you this, there's a scene in Cobra where he comes home from a long day of copping and he has a pizza on the table, right? Yes. Yeah. Joe, right. What does he do?
Yes. He cuts it with scissors. I thought that was so cool for no good reason back then.
Yeah.
I saw it in the theater.
I did not remember that from being a kid at all. I'm watching this movie and he's got a pizza from the night before because that's how Cobra lives. He still has half a pizza. He starts pulling pieces of pizza out. He's watching TV. He's got a pair of scissors and he's cutting off slices off of the slice and eating it. I thought this is a fucking choice. Like the director probably said, Sly, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm gonna cut the pizza with scissors. And they're like, Sly, why don't you just eat it like you normally? And he's like, he probably went to his agent, and then they probably had to shut down for the whole day. And the agent had to come and go, Sly is gonna eat these with his scissors. All right, just deal with it. It's a creative choice. Okay, so speaking of creative choices, back to Superman 4. Lloyd, what do you want to do first? Do you want to go over Rotten Tomatoes? Do you want to go over box office, or do you want to start off with the cast of this thing?
Let's just start off with Rotten Tomatoes, and then I'll do box office.
All right.
The critics, the tomato meter is 11%.
Wow.
11. Now we know anything above 60% is certified fresh. This is certified rotten right here. According to critics, the audience score, not much higher, but 16%.
Wow.
These may be the two lowest Rotten Tomato scores we've seen
so far. I think this might be lower than Jaws 3. I think Jaws 3 even had some people that liked it.
I love it.
You love Jaws 3?
I love Jaws 3.
All right, we'll talk about that later. All right, so 11. So again, as Lloyd said, if you get a 60%, you're considered fresh, certified fresh. You get that nice juicy red round tomato. If you're under that, the consensus of enough reviews are below that, you get that splat. And we get the
smelly
splat
tomato,
the smelly, nasty, rotten tomato, right there on both. All right. So let's do some box office. This is another way we like to go about this. We like to see what was this competing with. Maybe just maybe Superman 4 wasn't that bad, but maybe like the greatest thing ever came out the same week.
Well, I'm going to give you the top 6 of this weekend. So July 24th to the 26th of 1987. And I'm going to give you the number 6 because of this. Number 6 is Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Number 5, La Bamba.
Good. Solid movie.
Yep. Number 4 is Superman 4. Number 3, Summer School.
Just watched that again last year. Mark Harmon, Kirstie Alley.
Yep.
Good movie. Fun movie.
Number 2 is a Snow White and the Seven Dwarf re-release. And number 1 that weekend, RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Joe, out of that list, does it surprise you that Superman 4, which I'm assuming when they released it, they expected it to be in the top 3. Does it surprise you that it was not even, it was 4 or no?
I guess now, well, yes, I guess I was kind of surprised. I assumed at least for one weekend it would be up there. And I also point out that I've seen all 6 of those movies. Well, 5 of those 6 movies in the theaters, except I didn't see Summer School because that seemed too raunchy, I think, at the time. But I definitely saw RoboCop and everything else. And I mean, RoboCop's one of the best movies ever. So in hindsight, I guess it's good to know that was number 1. That was way better, up higher than Superman 4.
Yeah, it's comforting to know that at least it lost to RoboCop and a 70-year-old reissue of Snow White.
Yeah.
less people wanted to see the hero of the world, Superman, on his 4th go around, and they'd rather see Snow White, which they probably all owned in one of those giant clamshell Disney VHSs. They're like, no, honey, let's go spend money at the movie theaters. Let's go do this.
It's the world's most wholesome virgin versus the world's most wholesome superhero.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to the top 10 of the year. Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple more because this was a pretty decent year.
Yeah, 87. Predator. Predator
last
came
year,
out.
yeah. The last year was 83 that we did where it had so many fantastic movies.
Yeah.
All right. So Superman that year was number 69.
Not a surprise.
15.6 million.
It sounds about right. It had a mouthful of dick.
All right. So as you said, number 12, Predator. Number 11, Dirty Dancing. Number 10, Witches of Eastwick. 9, Lethal Weapon. 8, Stakeout. 7, The Secret of My Success. 6, The Untouchables. 5, Moonstruck. 4, Good Morning Vietnam. 3, Beverly Hills Cop 2. 2, Fatal Attraction.
Hold
and
on.
number one. Can you guess it?
87?
87.
Wow.
It's a comedy.
Spaceballs.
Nope.
No.
3 men and a baby. Yeah.
My Lord. Predator was 12 that year?
Yep.
And 3 men and a, oh my God. All right. I'm a little stunned by that. Joe, are you a little stunned that 3 Men and a Baby was the number 1 movie of 1987?
I guess I am, yeah. I mean, I guess I was thinking, right, Big was probably the best comedy of 88, and there was no Back to the Future. I was thinking the biggest titles. So 3 Men and a Baby probably was it. I mean,
Who
Tom
was that?
Selleck is sexy.
Tom Selleck and Steve Guttenberg.
And
Ted Danson.
Ted Danson.
Yeah, dancing.
Yeah. With that rumor of the dead little boy in the window. If you've never seen that, look it up on YouTube. If you guys ever heard of that, there's a scene in 3 Men and a Baby, and if you go on YouTube, you can find this. That people for years said that a little boy died in the building they filmed in, and there's a scene in the movie where Ted Danson and I think it's Ted Danson and someone else are talking, and in the background of the apartment, there's a window with with the blinds and the shades drawn, and behind the curtains you can see the outline of something. And the rumor was that a little kid died, and it was the ghost of the little kid shows up on TV. In reality, it was a stand-up of the movie poster that someone had shoved behind there, and they didn't take it out for filming. Like, it was like folded in half, and it's like, so it's a little shorter. But I will say this, if you decide to look it up and you kind of like let your brain go and think kind of creepy, it definitely looks like someone's standing behind these fucking curtains. It's just it's not a dead kid, which makes it better, right?
Because you know what? Dead kids don't stand around movie sets.
They don't. No, they generally don't. That's for sure. All right. So, yeah. So let's get into the cast now. So we've talked about what came out around it. We know that this thing couldn't beat Snow White. We know that it was the 69th of the year. The critical consensus was that this was a piece of shit. Audience consensus was this was a piece of shit. Let's see.
Christopher Reeve told John Cryer, "Hey, this is going to be a piece of shit."
Yeah.
Basically, in so many words.
Yes, he did. All right. So let's see who was in this thing and see if maybe this cast worked against it.
Well, you've got a lot of your normal Superman cast. Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent / Kal-El / Superman.
Can I say something real quick about Christopher Reeve? So in doing preparation for this show, I do my notes and I look up stuff and everything. And I kind of read the whole Wikipedia thing about Christopher Reeve, and especially about like his accident, which happened in 95, up until his death of 2004. And can I tell you, like, I had a tear in my eye. Like, Christopher Reeve is my Superman, right? He never seemed like anything other than a really good guy. Again, I don't know that for sure, but he came across as like a seemingly pretty genuine guy. He was Superman to me, and just to read like kind of the pain and suffering that this guy went, I'm not trying to make this serious or anything, but the shit that this guy went through in the last 9 years of his life. He lived for 9 years in that state. He did a lot of good things for, stem cell research, and he tried to do a lot with what he was left. But man, what a sad story. Like, the only way to put it, totally sad story that this happened to this guy. I remember my dad worked for a grocery chain up here in the Northeast for 50 years. And he worked on the shore for several years. And he used to get celebrities that would come into his store. John Goodman and Art Carney, people that lived on the shore. And he said that Christopher Reeve came in multiple times because he had a house down there. He's buried in Westport, actually, Westport, Connecticut. And he said every time Christopher Reeve came in, he felt kind of bad for him because he was so obviously trying not to be noticed, but in a polite way. Like, he was naturally a light brown blonde guy The black hair is obviously dyed in. And my dad said he would just be walking around with his wife or family shopping and like kind of holding a magazine up, like almost stuff that you see celebrities do in movies, like putting a mat, he was literally doing that. But he said if someone approached him, he would talk to him. He was very nice. So yeah, just kind of getting back into this again, reading the whole thing with Christopher Reeve. It was a downer. What a downer. And I just want to point this out too, because I always find this funny. If you're talking about Christopher Reeve, it's just Reeve. It's not
No S.
Reeves. No S. George Reeves, the Superman from the TV show, was Reeves, but everybody always says Christopher Reeves. And I just want to put it out there. It's Reeve, no S. All right. I'm sorry. Who's next?
Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor and as the voice of Nuclear Man.
Yes.
Mark Pillow as Nuclear Man. The one we get to see actually on film.
Yes.
Because there was another Nuclear Man, but we didn't get to see him.
Yep.
Jockey Cooper as Perry White. He's the Daily Planet editor, chief operator.
Yep.
Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen. What else has Mark McClure done?
Well, not that you would know because you don't like these movies, but Joe, who's he? Who's younger brother, or who is he the older brother of in another film?
It's the Marty McFly's dad. It's basically Crispin Glover's character.
Well, no, he's
older. He's the actual Marty McFly's dad.
He's Marty McFly's brother.
Okay.
Yeah,
brother. Sorry, I looked that up like just before this.
Yeah, I just made that connection. And by the way, I do like those movies.
You didn't do the episode with us, you pig.
No, I didn't do the episode, but I like the movies just fine enough. All right, you pig. John Cryer as Lenny Luthor.
Joe,
John Cryer.
real quick.
Yeah.
John Cryer, how did you feel about, like, this is at the height of John Cryer's stardom as a younger actor. Obviously he became big, with the 2.5 Men, but this was like, obviously, like, you could even tell, like, this is going to be a reach, but you could tell he was filming Hiding Out because his hair had the blonde, like, if you ever saw Hiding Out, he's got the blonde hair. This is right after Pretty in Pink, when he was like, pretty much like a Brat Pack megastar. Like, do you think that when he saw, do you think he signed up for this knowing it was a Superman movie and didn't look at the script?
I'm thinking he probably thought he was going to get something good out of it, right? Even bigger boost because, here's a big franchise I can join. But I mean, I have to say, if Ned Beatty isn't available as a sidekick, I think something's wrong with the production, because it's not like he was working a lot by then either, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he should have known that he was like the second or third choice.
I thought the same thing. I thought, what was Ned Beatty doing that they could get Hackman back? And Hackman, not that he's obviously but in his day he would do shit, but like, they gave him enough dinero to come back, but they couldn't get Ned Beatty back. And then they go, let's get this young hot guy, and literally all John Cryer does in this movie is just go, whoa, dude, Uncle Lex. Oh no.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude of Steel.
So yeah, I didn't know who he was back then.
horrible.
Sorry, I didn't know who he was back then, but like, now knowing at the time, but now I'm like, oh, John Cryer's in this. Yeah, I totally remember that. It's like, oof, he probably regrets that. I mean, now he's rolling in bank. He probably have no regrets, but he probably looks back going, just delete that from my profile.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does have a connection. Lloyd, do you know the connection to current DC media with John Cryer?
Yeah, he was. Wasn't he in that? That Flashpoint series that they did?
No, he might have been, but he's
Lex Luthor in that.
He plays Lex Luthor on Supergirl, on the Supergirl television show. So it's kind of like he comes full circle, and actually plays Lex Luthor much later on.
I know what it is I'm thinking of, not Flashpoint. They did a series of crossovers with Crisis, and he was in that. That's where I saw him.
Right. Yep.
All right, a couple more here. Sam Wanamaker as David Warfield, basically the tabloid king. Mariel Hemingway as his daughter Lacey Warfield. And Margot Kidder as Lois Lane.
Margot Kidder, man. You know what? I got to give him credit. I give all 4 of the original Superman actors in terms of the Daily Planet crew. They've got chemistry. I felt their scenes. I felt like they were, actually like, kind of like, familiar with each other. I give them credit with that. Mariel Hemingway, right? Not Margot. Yeah. This is Mariel.
Mariel. Yep.
All right, Joe, attractive or not attractive?
Oh, very attractive.
Okay. Lloyd,
are you suggesting she's not attractive?
Okay. So Lloyd, very attractive as well.
Sure, she's attractive. Yeah.
I
Don't
find
you
her-
remember those 80s movies?
I know. I find her attractive, but then I look at her in another scene and I'm just suddenly like, I don't know. I don't know if it's there. It's like,
Well, she's got what is it? Maybe like a broad face.
she's got a dude's, she's got like,
Yeah,
what,
she's got a jawline.
right. When they say like a guy's got like, like a fucking lantern chin. She has kind of a lantern chin.
I think that's
Hey,
her
that's all right.
Northern European heritage, right? I mean, model as her sister. So I definitely get her confused with her sister somewhat, and I feel like both of them were considered more famous than they actually are, because I mean, their grandfather is Ernest Hemingway, so you know that their grandmother was hot, so probably her parents were hot, right? So I was never a big fan of hers. I think she's hot, but I feel like we're supposed to think she's famous for some reason, but not actually famous.
So are you saying that Mariel and Margot Hemingway were the Paris and Nikki Hilton of 1984? Like around, like maybe like we're not sure why they're in our lives.
Yes, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I know Mira Hemingway. She was early on creepy Woody Allen underage muse in Manhattan. So
Yeah. She
we
played
know that
Dorothy
got-
Stratton in Star 80.
So I mean, she had some roles. I mean, man, Woody Allen, obviously, looking back, I watched it later on and saying, "Ooh, she was supposed to be a target of something."
Yeah,
because she was like 17 in that movie. I'm like, oh god.
he definitely has particular tastes. All right. Do you think it's weird Mark Pillow never went on to have a career after this? Manster, what do you feel? Did you see enough Pillow in Nuclear Man to say, why wasn't this guy like the next Patrick Swayze, or why wasn't he the next Keanu Reeves?
Now, did he make anything after this?
No, this is his only credit. That's it.
I don't know why he would have quit after that, but he could have had some kind of career.
IMDb has a couple other random credits, but nothing I think I heard of.
Oh, I thought I had read he had done nothing else.
I mean, I briefly thought he was Malibu from the American Gladiators, but I don't know.
Now, Joe, were you familiar with the fact that there are apparently, I have not watched any of these. I wanted to do it before this, but I didn't get around to it. 45 minutes of deleted scenes that you can find on YouTube and certain versions of the DVD. Did you know this, Joe?
45 minutes? No, I definitely did not.
So this movie was cut to shit, and Lloyd made a kind of allusion a second ago to Nuclear Man. Lloyd, what did you say about Nuclear Man, and what was there?
There was actually a first Nuclear Man that Superman defeated in the original script, and then the second Nuclear Man came about afterwards. He was more based on the Bizarro Superman, character, and he looked more like him. His personality was more like him. There was quite a few fight scenes that I saw. I looked up deleted scenes on YouTube. You can see it. It's pretty bad stuff. So, and it all got cut. There, I know there was. What'd you say? 45 minutes.
45 minutes completely.
I didn't see 45 minutes worth, but I saw enough.
So I guess the biggest things that got cut were three things. Were the entire first Nuclear Man story, which was played by a British actor named Clive Mantle, and like you said, he was based more on Bizarro. Quick scientific question, Joe: if Superman's hair can hold up 1,000-pound ball, right, with no problem, because I'm fine with that, should it be able to be cut by bolt cutters?
No, and I even knew that back in 1987.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to refer to you as
it should be indestructible, right?
Right. Well, yeah, I would assume if it's holding that ball and it's got that tensile strength, that if you were to put bolt cutters around it, the bolt cutters would just shatter or bend or do whatever. Okay.
And you would think that they would at least use some bulletproof glass to protect it.
Yeah, no.
Not something that can be busted with some bolt cutters.
Very easily. So to get back to the deleted scenes real quick. So the first Nuclear Man was cut out totally. So when we see Luthor create the second Nuclear Man, that's actually the first Nuclear Man in the movie. That's actually his second try. There is also more depth to the relationship between Lacey Warfield and Clark Kent, which they try to make them a couple in this thing, and it never
was
really
depth.
Well, there was more. There were more scenes that were supposed to make it to give you a little bit more of a actual relationship, and there was also more scenes that revolved around Clark selling the family farm. We get one scene in the beginning.
Another plot line, subplot that just went nowhere at all.
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to introduce a plot line like that and cut all the scenes out around it, then cut that one scene out.
Just get rid of it.
Just get rid of it. Have him go back to the farm to retrieve the data, whatever they call those, the fucking data sheath, and then just don't even say anything about the thing being sold. But they introduced this whole idea that he's gonna, he doesn't want to sell to a mall developer. He wants to sell to a farmer, because he's salt of the earth American dude. But then you cut out everything that takes place after that involving that plot line. I don't understand why that's in there at all.
That's not the only thing that has absolutely no bearing on the movie at all.
Yeah, no, there's definitely several. I did want to jump. This thing was nominated. It did not win. It was nominated for 2 Golden Raspberries, which, if you don't know, those are the the worst of the year movie awards that are given out. Worst supporting actress, Mariel Hemingway. She lost out to Daryl Hannah in Wall Street. And worst visual effects nominated, and it lost out to Jaws: The Revenge, which totally fair. Because
I haven't actually seen Jaws: The Revenge, so that must be really bad.
It's Jaws: The Revenge. Yeah. Jaws 3
right
is light years better than Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh my.
Light years. And we gave that trash. So yeah. Also, if you're ever interested, if you can find this, I don't know if it's a quarter bin book or if it's a $30 book, but apparently the comic adaptation, which came out in 1987, was based on the original script. So if you ever wanted to read, if you ever said, damn it, I need to know this story front to back, soup to nuts.
They fixed up the story from what I've read, because I did do some research on that, and they definitely fixed up the story. They tightened it up. They made it much better than the actual movie.
Yeah. It was written by Bob Rozakis, who is a longtime DC writer, comic writer, and drawn by Kurt Swan, who is a very famous Superman artist. So towards the end of his career. So it's definitely out there. We've kind of talked a bit about different factors that might have, for the general consensus, for critics, box office. But let's talk a little bit amongst ourselves. So we do this. We're going to go through our likes and dislikes, right? And I'll start with Joe. Why don't you give me, we'll go around a couple times with likes, and then we'll go around to dislikes. Now, remember, Joe, even if you hated this movie, be kind to it, be polite to it, say something nice about it. Imagine you were going to meet its mother for the first time, and she's ugly, but you got to say something like, your lasagna is delicious, ma'am. Something nice about Superman 4. What was something you liked about it?
Okay, I will say it was a legitimate PG movie. Nothing, no need to create a new rating system. No, maybe it could be PG-13. It really was good for kids and the family. So I'll say wholesome movie, fun to watch at the time. It's changed. My view has changed over time, but I think it was just a nice sort of silly slapsticky thing to have happen. So I can sort of applaud that they didn't seem to really care where they were going and just let it kind of happen, free flow, and besides what they cut out apparently, but just make a happy-go-lucky film, serious. And I also kind of liked, and what my memory of it from back then was, right, Superman never punches anybody. I want to see Superman fighting. And so, okay, the fighting didn't end up quite as good as I'd hoped, but there was still Superman fighting. So
right,
and like being, beat up once and going away and coming back. So those are the two. I guess those items. I really like the kids' nature of the movie, even though I was already advanced into rated R by the time I was seeing that. And then just seeing Superman fight, even if it was bad.
All right, Manster, something nice, say something good about it.
Well, here's something I could say about this movie that I couldn't even say about the other movie that we recently did. I'm familiar with the characters, and it's fun to see characters back in a film like this.
Right.
And another like is this Superman music. It wasn't a John Williams score, but it was a score based on the John Williams music. And he actually did create 3 new themes. Jeremy's theme, what's her name? Lacey's theme, and Nuclear Man's theme.
Yep. And it was composed by Alexander Courage, who is probably best known for composing and creating the original Star Trek, the original series theme. Alexander Courage. So so it's kind of cool to get that in there. If I had to give this thing, I'll go one right off the bat. Like you said, familiarity. Christopher Reeve, whether or not he knew he was making a movie that was going to be bad, whether or not he wasn't into it, he doesn't phone this in. He plays Superman like he plays Superman in every other movie. One of my favorite parts of this is something they do in either all of them or several of them, is the very last shot of the movie is Superman flying in space. And before he flies off, for what would be the very last time, he smiles at the camera. Again, it was just, this guy made you believe that he was Superman. This is why when everybody talks about Superman now, Henry Cavill or, anybody that's played Superman, they compare it to Christopher Reeve because he left his mark on it. Everybody on Earth hates Superman Returns. I like Superman Returns, and I like Brandon Routh a lot because he is pretty much playing
that quality.
He has that quality. Yeah. He is that Superman. He's supposed to be too. Superman Returns is a direct sequel to Part 2. They skip over 3 and 4. They get rid of them, but he has that same quality. And yeah, I love the fact that the music was there. Even the opening credits, they try to do it in that same style with the 3D, the 3D
Those $2 opening credits.
Well, but you know what? It was at least in the same, again, it was cut for budget, but it was in the same style as what you got in the motion picture and you got in Superman 2. All right, Joe, say something else nice about it. You're at the end of your date with Superman 4. You want to take it out again. You've got to have one more compliment or it's not going to give you its phone number again.
I mean, I found the music for Muriel Hemingway's scenes to be enticing because it sounded like porn music. So it really, it was really turned me on. And I was like, look at the mood they're creating in the apartment and in the gym.
That's right.
The Sultry mix.
The Lacey Warfield Sultry mix.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I guess the whole film, it's like how much I get now. You've told me so much more info than I knew beforehand. That I've even changed I'll say some of my dislikes when we get to that. But yeah, I mean, I'll even go back to what Lloyd said about seeing the characters over again and familiarity. You got a lot of that in this movie, so I will just piggyback on his to add. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
All right, Manster, you got something else nice you want to say about this?
Let's see. I kind of got a kick out of the scene where I think that guy in the gym's name was maybe Paul or something, and Clark picked up a barbell, tossed it over to him, said, "Oh, here you go." That was I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, that goes back to kind of what I said about the Christopher Reeve thing. Is that Christopher Reeve? Everybody gives him the credit, and it's true. He is so many people's Superman. He plays Clark Kent to a fucking T. Oh, when he changes over to the Clark persona, you believe he's cumbersome, he's goofy, he's not confident. You believe all of that. And then when he changes into that Superman costume, you believe he's the Man of Steel. So it wasn't a one-dimensional performance. And you're right. There's a lot of funny gags in this, like in terms of, him doing stuff like that, where he tosses the barbell at the guy or, as sitcom-y as it was, the whole double date thing, where he ends up getting stuck. He gets stuck on the laundry or on the cart, the luggage cart, like little things like that. I like bits like that. All right. If I had to give this another compliment, I'll give them credit, whether or not it was cut for budgetary reasons or whether or not it was cut well. They kept it nice and short. They didn't try to give you a 2.5 hour long, Superman versus Nuclear Man. They try to have a good message. We're kind of in the height of the Cold War at that point. Everybody, every kid my age, I'm sure Joe probably the same way. I lived in fear. I lived in fear of nuclear war as a kid. As weird as that might sound, I lived in fear. I never saw The Day After, but I remember seeing the previews and, thinking these things, this could happen. And this movie was kind of at the tail end of all that. But, hey, it's a nice idea. Superman is finally going to do something about this. Now, it also does bring up a good plot point. Should Superman do something about this? And that's right. That does dig into it. He's not supposed to interfere. I generally like kind of like the overall tone. The story, like Joe said, is kind of family friendly, and it takes on a real world issue that maybe, that it was nice to kind of see. But I can tell from where we're going that you guys want to talk more about the stuff we didn't like, and I'm cool with that. Let's go down to Joe. Joe, give us something about S4, as we call it in the industry, that you did not care for.
So I feel like all of Superman's general good deeds were just retread. I feel like I saw nothing new, nothing different from the earlier movies. He saves the guy, the subway, was going to crash because the guy had a heart attack, and he stops the subway. And after he saved the cosmonauts who were singing Frank Sinatra from, flying off into space. And, it's just all his, and then the scene where he's, he briefly reveals himself to Lois, but then just, gives her Men in Black again. None of that's new. And so, I guess got really like, wow, I'm not seeing anything. And now you've already cut in 45 minutes of the movie before we see Nuclear Man or something like that. Right. So nothing new to see here.
All right. That's fair. Lloyd is looking like he wants to beat the shit out of this thing.
I'll give you my first list, which is non-specifics. You know how I like specifics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Things of logic that don't make sense. I'll get into that the next round. I got about 10 here for you that are
all right. Keep
more generic.
Yeah, give us a couple generic ones.
All right. The writing is terrible. It's insipid. It's lazy. It's just dumb. There's things that don't make any sense. There's plot holes. It's not even a finished movie. It's just not finished. Every attempt at humor, I know you said you liked a lot of those humorous things, but I think the attempts at humor are just very lame. Just logic, common sense, and physics seem to take a backseat to everything else. The special effects are just terrible. There's a lot of other movies came out at that time that had much better special effects.
Predator.
Yep. The flying scenes are used 9 times. The same exact scene of Superman flying straight into the camera. It's the same exact scene pasted over the background. The nuclear arms dealers, they serve zero purpose to the plot at all. There's absolutely no reason for them.
That was Jack Porkins from Star Wars.
I'm not saying I don't like seeing those guys, but they serve no purpose. And I'll just end it there.
All right.
Because I didn't talk any specifics yet.
Okay, we'll get to specifics. I'll go next, and I will say that one of my biggest problems with this is the complete lack of, paying attention to Superman's powers, or like just inventing powers as we go along. Okay, so first of all, ones I can think off the top of my head. You now suddenly can levitate people. At the end of the movie, when Nuclear Man is rampaging through New York, aka Metropolis, he like throws a bunch of guys up in the air, and Superman just looks at them and catches them with his telekinesis.
Yep.
And lowers them. And then when Nuclear Man is going buck wild on the Great Wall of China, he destroys the Great Wall of China with his nuclear fire. Superman uses his super carpentry vision. I don't know what you would call that, but he rebuilds the wall by staring at like the bricks, and they go back up again. And I read that scene was added in after, and the way they did it was they just took a scene of Superman from earlier in that scene looking around and inserted the I-beams coming out. So it's not even filmed for that. And then, as Joe mentioned a second ago, now this was a plot point as well in Superman 2, but his ability to mind erase Lois at any point that he wants to. I certainly don't understand the scene where he takes her out on the balcony, feigns suicide.
Off?
Yeah, jumps off.
That?
And then another of his powers that I don't understand is how the fuck, when he's flying with Lois and he lets go of her, does he continue to let her? She flies.
She continues flying.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that happened in Superman 2. I don't remember. So I don't know if that was like also done back then, where they're trying to say like, oh, he can maybe give you the power for a few minutes. I don't know.
That's part of his new levitation skill.
Yeah. You've got a pretty well-established character, super strength, right? Now, again, this is a movie franchise that is known for fucking around with it. Superman cannot fly around the earth backwards and turn back time. He does that in Superman, the movie, right? He saves Lois that way. We've all kind of forgiven it because it's a fucking rad scene. When he flies around the earth and the earthquake all goes back together and he saves her because he's so heartbroken that this one person he connected with died, I'm like, okay, I could deal with it. But when he's fucking rebuilding the Great Wall of China with his vision,
yeah.
I'm not okay with that. So yeah, there are definitely some pretty lame uses of his powers. Joe, what else you have? Now we're on a roll.
As far as uses of his powers too, I mean, why did he not use his cold breath to stop Mount Vesuvius instead of using mountaintop removal to plug it up with another mountain? which is just, if he wants to save the world from environmental nuclear disaster, don't destroy the rest of the part of the world.
Right.
And also, I couldn't understand, and maybe you guys have read more comics than I have for sure, how they just invented this new power source that he could regenerate himself with nothing in between. He finds the beacon back in Smallville, and then he uses that to get better when Nuclear Man kicks his ass. So like I couldn't figure out where that came from either. So just another power.
Yeah, and why did he just lay around with radiation sickness? I mean, isn't he impervious to everything except for kryptonite?
He is not.
Can he really get radiation sickness?
He possibly could. That I'm not going to, because a lot of his powers are completely based around the yellow light of our sun. So all I'm going to say, and his cells are like solar batteries, all of his body cells. So I'm not going to give you the science. That would be Joe's job. But I will say that the idea that maybe like nuclear power could disrupt him, I'm more okay with that. And we know from the first movie that those, kryptonite rods or whatever they are, or it's not kryptonite, but those info rods, he built the Fortress of Solitude with one of them. It's definitely a MacGuffin. It's like, okay, you're going to get fucked up in this movie. Here's a get out of jail free card. And that's exactly what it
didn't
is.
he already use that? Like you said, he built the Fortress of Solitude. I mean, he already used that thing.
Oh, no. That was another one. That was the one that.
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, so there was two.
Yes. Yeah, that's my point. Is where the second one come up from.
That's pretty convenient.
Well, they did try. I will give him credit. I'm not saying that it's not convenient. You're right, but they did. When the recording of his mother's voice is talking to him, she does say that if you use this, the pod is going to be, obsolete. So I think that was supposed to be like the battery to the pod, and that
some kind of power module thing.
So I'm kind of okay with that. What I'm not okay with, I'm going to jump in on this real quick, Joe, is his mother's pronunciation of Krypton. She calls it Krypton.
Yeah. Seriously.
I
noticed that too.
I was like, come on.
And
that really,
when we had you escape from Krypton, I'm like, what? I
thought maybe I had missed something somewhere. So I'm glad you brought that up.
She says it like 7 fucking times.
Oh, I had written that down too. It drove me crazy. I'm like, what? Come on.
All right, Joe, you have anything else you want to point out? Anything else you want to?
I mean, we could just spend another hour and a half just doing that. So,
well, let's do it.
I'm wondering if, you're saying with the scenes they edited out, was there more context in all these things we've mentioned? Like any mention of any kind of new powers he comes up with, but like the power source piece that gets him better. Was there more discussion of that would have been more context if you saw it in the deleted scenes? Like the pieces just don't fit together enough to make any sense. And so I was a little baffled by that.
All right, Lloyd, you want to get into some specifics?
Yeah, there's some more. I mean, I think you mentioned it right at the top of the show, talking in space. I don't think you can do that. Matter of fact, I know you can't do that.
This was also done in Superman 2, which many people have a problem with.
Yeah. This is what happens when I guess it was just a rogue satellite takes out that cosmonaut, which I'm pretty sure that would just kill him.
Yeah.
But anyway, he gets bumped. Superman gets him, and then says something to him in Russian, right, and sets him in the door there, which didn't really seem like an airlock to me, but
no, it just seemed like a hatch.
Just seemed like
it was like a fucking garbage hatch. Just get in there, crawl in there.
Yeah.
No. You don't have to depressurize or pressurize. No big deal.
Right.
I do want to piggyback on that, Lloyd. You cannot talk in space. Now, if you wanted to sit here and have a comic book argument and say, well, Superman's an alien and maybe his physiology is different and his lungs are different and he could talk in space. If we were to Right. But what I'm saying is, and he had some kind of ability to project, right? Like a box around, like an invisible box around his head that we could do that all day. And at some point, one of us could make an argument that maybe Superman could talk in space, however dumb it is. But the argument we can't make is that when Nuclear Man brings Lacey into space, how she didn't fucking explode like a bag of blood. Joe, again, you being the scientist, what the fuck was going on in that scene? I
mean, yeah, she would just burst immediately. I don't get that. I mean, I mean, the space altogether, if you mind me saying, was bad. I mean, just, talking in space, whatever, he's Superman, you live with it, but just all the scenes. And I guess I'd also like to point out, if I could, why, if he was getting rid of all the nukes, why did they all launch them all at once into space? Like, suppose he couldn't get to a couple of them. Like, they just all of a sudden, the Russians and the U.S. just start firing them all, and then he just catches them.
Right.
I think that was coordinated, or was that just like, hey, let's launch him and make him, put his money where his mouth?
I was almost wondering if there was like multiple scenes that they cut out or were scripted where he was just going into the silos and taking them and then storing them up in that giant net. But
where did he get that huge space net?
Yeah,
I mean, that thing was massive.
Master, were you going to say something about the space stuff too? It looked like you were about to say something.
Yeah, the space net. My biggest question, even before Nuclear Man takes, Lacey's in outer space with her dress on and high heels. Why does he take her into outer space?
Why does he become obsessed with her from seeing her picture on a paper?
Right. He sees her picture on a paper. He goes to get her. Superman says, what does he say? Stop. That was the funniest fucking scene, man. When he's telling him to stop, think of the people, and he's got his gestures.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fucking hilarious. What all of a sudden caused him to be completely obsessed with this girl and to know, where she was located, and it made no sense.
I wonder if like that picture of her on the paper on the Daily Planet was like the world's first, what do they call that now? Thirst trap? The kids put out the thirst traps now to like get guys to like their, like, I wonder if she did that on purpose to say like, I'm hoping like some psycho killer, preferably with nuclear based powers, becomes obsessed with me from looking at this picture because
but she already liked Kent.
Right. Well, he was like, he wasn't really, he was acting very Kentish. So maybe she was like, I got to get a guy, I got to get a guy. Yeah. So what else? So give us another one. I know you've got a list.
Well, I mean, there's the biggest freaking one out there. I think bigger than everything else we've said. He fucking pushes the moon in front of the sun to cause an eclipse so that he, can eliminate Nuclear Man's powers. I don't have to be a scientist to know that if you fuck around with the location of the moon, you're fucking just ruining everything on the earth.
Probably cause some tidal waves, I assume.
Yeah, tidal waves, weather, freaking crazy weather patterns.
And we're all
ghosts are going to come out.
West Virginia is now Virginia. Virginia is West Virginia. It's cats and dogs
are just going to take over the whole world.
Cats and dogs, friends all over.
Yeah. Don't fuck with the moon.
No, yeah, and that's another problem with this movie. As I said before, is Superman is incredibly powerful, but there's limitations, and I think one of them is maybe not being able to push the moon anywhere. But I don't know. I have another question that goes along with what we're talking about here that I found to be completely out of character, and maybe did either of you feel the same way? So we know that Nuclear Man is essentially just like he's essentially like one of those calculators from the 80s that was solar powered. Like if you put your hand over it, didn't work anymore. So as soon as you shut the lights off, he shuts down, he goes into like a Tim Tebow stance and he shuts down. We know that Superman figures this out and that's why he uses the moon, but he locks him in an elevator at one point and shuts the door and depowers because it's dark in the elevator. He takes the elevator by the cables, flies it to the moon, and throws the elevator on the moon, and then flies away. Were either of you super bothered by the fact that it appears Superman just buried a dude alive on the moon? Like, I was so bothered by that. Like, I don't know, Joe, did that seem out of character to you? That it seemed like, to me, unless there was going to be, now obviously he gets out, so we don't know. But like, if Nuclear Man didn't wake up, was Superman abandoning him on the moon?
Well, see, and now it seems like you're almost getting the arguments you hear about, the first Cavill movie, right, of Superman actually killing somebody, right? He kills Zod. But I guess I was more disturbed by the fact that he didn't realize that the moon would rotate and the dark side would become the sun again and Nuclear Man would come back. So I have no moral qualms about just him depositing somebody, because he deposited those Zod, the other people into space back at 2, right? Deposited them back away and had no problem getting rid of them. So really, he didn't do anything worse. He just screwed up by not really paying attention to not realize that the moon rotates.
Yeah. Superman's just not too bright, I guess.
I had no moral dilemma with that as well.
I just thought, man, is he leaving this guy to die on the moon? And not just that, not just this guy, but essentially his clone. I mean, they don't really talk about that a lot in this, but he's made from, a strand of his pubic hair. So, Mark Pillow, is Superman 2.0 as Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man, by the way, I don't know issue or anything like that, but I do know that in DC Comics in the last year or so, Brian Michael Bendis has been writing all the Superman stuff, Superman and Action Comics. And Nuclear Man is not a comic book character. Nuclear Man was created for this movie and has never been heard from since then. Bendis introduced him into the comics, so he's actually in DC universe again. So I just thought that was kind of a funny little fact. All right, so if I had to pick another thing that bothered me about this, it's Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder just always, I don't know. I can't tell if she was like in the grips of drugs or what was happening with her. But I always had a hard time picturing her being the Lois Lane to the Christopher, even in the first movie when she was still a little sharper. Just she never sold it to me, and I feel terrible. She passed away a few years ago, and she obviously had a lot of problems in her life. But she was always a character, always an actress that I always felt was miscast in a very big role. And to go even further with that, you get to like the Superman Returns movie with Brandon Routh. What was her name? Kate Bosworth. She's terrible too. She's a beautiful girl, but she's terrible in that as well. So she's not the first person to be miscast as Lois Lane, but I don't know. And the subplot about the Daily Planet getting sold to Warfield, who's going to turn it into a tabloid newspaper, it's given a good heft of the movie. Not a ton, but we go back to it multiple times. We never go back to the farm. We never go back to certain other things. We go back to this, and all that plot was there for was to introduce Lacey. That was it. Yeah. They could have just said that. They could have said it's been sold. Here's our new boss, the daughter or the daughter of the owner. That's it. But they kept going back and back and back. Like they had a deal with Jackie Cooper that there had to be something for Perry White to do in this fucking movie. I don't know. No. What else you got, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I was never a Margot Kidder fan, and I guess low rent Carrie Fisher, I guess, is the best description. Yeah. She got glommed on it. I don't know anything else she's done, and I don't know if I care.
Black Christmas.
She was great in Black Christmas, which we saw a couple years ago, and I had never seen before. It's a really good horror film from 1974. And she's great in it. And then it's like 3 years or 4 years before Superman. And again, she's not terrible in Superman.
And John, admit it, she was hot in Black Christmas.
She was hot in Black Christmas. She was she played a college student. She was like a drinker in that. And she kind of looked like the kind of girl that I could probably have scored with at that point in my life. But yeah, like, I don't know. I was never a big fan of hers. Never a big fan of hers.
Yeah, actually, I started watching Black Christmas, and then it went off free of Prime, so I got about 20 minutes into it, and then I went to watch it again, and it just sort of went away. I never went back to it. I realized I need to rewatch that movie, so I just want to put that in there, or get a chance to watch it all the way through. And now that I listen to Pine of Horrors all the time, I really need to catch up on all those 80s movies that and as a side note, Pine of Horrors to me is basically the first season, all the movies in the 80s that I saw the video boxes for that I never rented.
Yeah.
So
that's
like a great aside.
Thank you.
I definitely need to go back and watch Black Christmas. But yeah, I mean, for Margot Kidder, she just doesn't, do much. And then this one, she doesn't really have a function. She's not even the love interest, really, right? And he keeps wiping her mind. She just doesn't really do anything to drive the story. And then as far as the whole tabloid story, to me, that's like the beginning of Rupert Murdoch, the beginning of the tabloidization of the whole news. Like this was supposed to be the New York Post and just ahead of his time and predicting like the news 20 years later. So I guess that could be a compliment.
Yeah. Well,
it's time in that sense.
You know what it probably equates to? It probably, like you said, it probably was trying to take that element of rip from the headlines, right? So at that time, Rupert Murdoch was just kind of becoming this big thing, and like you said, the tabloidization of the news. So that was probably something that they were trying to throw in from 1986. Yeah. But nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit. All right, man, sir. I'm sure you've got something else on there that we could bounce off of.
Let's bounce this thing around. Lex, he creates like this genetic matrix of silly putty, hair, and some scraps of fabric. Is that literally all it takes to clone Superman? I mean, wow.
I mean, we don't know what his genetic material he had in the lab, so we really don't know what was in that. I need to see the formula first.
Right.
I mean, he has the DNA. He should be merging it with whatever plasma piece he had. But
Joe,
I mean, it was kind of like bubbly, kind of goopy looking stuff.
It looked like
I don't know how that you could actually extract any kind of plasma from Superman though.
Well, he did it from the hair. It was the hair.
So,
Does that have that in it? I guess.
If Joe had worked on the Nuclear Man project, you know what the difference would have been? it would have smelled like bananas.
Way to bring it back around.
Yeah, you like that?
Power.
Yeah. He's powered by the sun. He's got claws, and he smells like fucking bananas.
And he's wearing a banana hammock, so you just
Yeah. And somehow we got it to actually make that his outfit come out, all nice and neat and stylish and everything.
Yeah, genetically engineer a cape. I was wondering the same thing.
Well, he did say, right? Didn't Lenny ask him about that? And he was cutting the little fabric. The computer will take care of the rest. I think he said, yeah. The computer will take care of the rest, nephew, Do you think that there have been many other, Lloyd, I'll ask you this. Do you think there have been many other movie actors that have made easier money than Gene Hackman made for doing this movie?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's just a total, I don't know. He plays the diabolical goofball so well.
Yeah.
He really does. Oh, and to get back to something I mentioned earlier, why did they have to use his voice?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Really, why couldn't Mark Pillow just kind of make a gruff sounding voice?
There's probably a reason behind that, which I did not read. I'm almost curious if they just thought it would have sounded better with Lex's voice, with him saying, I must destroy Superman. I don't know. It didn't sound better to me.
It was so weird.
Oh yeah, it was weird. It
and then there's that scene in the hotel where, like you said before, the double date with Superman and Clark. And he goes into the bathroom at one point and he hears Lex Luthor, and then Lex Luthor actually says, "Oh, look up and to your left." How does he know exactly where Superman is located?
Yeah.
So that would be up and to the left.
That was dumb. I didn't have a
fucking goofy logic, man.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
I honestly didn't have a problem with him having a technology that only Superman could hear, because Luthor is a genius and Luthor does know how to do things. But you're right. Look up to your left is like, how the fuck is it? Like, I always feel like somebody's watching me, what's going on here? What's going on here? All right. So, okay, here's a good question. I think I see where this might be going, but I do have a question for each of you. Joe, so tomorrow you find the full cut of Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. You find the full cut. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. Everything that we talked about is put back into it. And I'm not telling you it means it's going to be a better movie, but it's a different experience. Do you watch it?
Yes, but probably in 20-minute increments.
Okay. Lloyd?
No, I'll just ask you guys what happened.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm not watching it.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so is there anything else before we get to the triple T's here, trash, tolerable, or treasure, that you guys want to add about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace? Is there any little tidbits or anything you noticed or anything you want to just... This is your last chance on a podcast to talk about Superman 4 for all three of us, probably. Yeah. So is there, do you want to get it out there?
Fuck them for killing Superman for 2 decades.
Well, this movie certainly did kill Superman for 2 decades. And then when he came back, Superman Returns didn't do it any favors, because people generally, again, hate that movie. I think it's great. I love Superman Returns. I'll go right out there and say it.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely a fantastic movie. Again, nothing to punch. It's just a straight Luthor story. There's goofy shit in that as well. Him having the kid, that's goofy. Get that out of there. But if you cut some of that stuff out, there's some really great moments. All right. So let's start off. We'll go to our guest last. We'll go to Joe last. Let's start off with Lloyd, because I think we know what hill we're rolling down right now with the Manster. So Manster, you've been presented the 3 T's. Where on the T-ometer does Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, land?
Well, shit does roll downhill, as you sort of implied. And it's trash. For me, this is just trash. It's a waste of a movie. It's a waste of everything.
All right. Now, the episode that I'm referring to is already out, so people know how you feel. You got to sit in a room for 3 viewings in a row. Do you go with Superman 4 or the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action movie?
Superman 4.
Superman 4. Okay. All right. So I'm glad we were able to gauge that. So,
yes.
All right. I'll go next. I watched this Saturday night of last week. I had not seen it since I was probably 11 years old or 12 years old. I don't remember my opinion of it back then, but I certainly know that in comic book and movie fandom, it is considered a terrible, terrible movie. I know that I can't remember what it was, but like one of those like 100 worst movies of all time books, it's in there. I wish I had written that down. That was one note I didn't take, but it was like top 100 worst movies of all time. It's in there. A friend of mine, John Carrier, is a podcaster, just started a new podcast called The Dangerous Podcast. And they were 4 episodes in, and their whole shtick on that show is they do like the worst movies of all time. Their 3rd episode was coincidentally about Superman 4. So you're all getting a feeling of like of what people think of Superman 4. That being said, I give this a tolerable. It is not good. It's got a lot wrong with it, but I thought I factored everybody's vitriol and hate for this movie in. And as I watched it, I can't lie, I was amused in bits. The logic is terrible. The story is terrible. The editing is terrible. There's that scene where he's kind of sick. He's got like maybe like he
two
doesn't
strands of hair left.
Right. Well, no. He's kind of sick. He's got like a cold day 3. Lois comes to see him. He's bundled up. He's a little sweaty. Then they go back to him, and he's like in the floor of his apartment, like trying to find that rod. He's got like 2 strands of hair left. He's got COVID-26 at this point. And then the next scene is him stopping Nuclear Man, like fully dressed up and like Superman again.
That's
like
right.
there's no progression. There's no editing. This is done multiple times in this movie. I'm never going to like purposely watch this movie again. I'm never going to buy the DVD or the Blu-ray. I don't care about this movie, but in the end, when I finished it, I went, that wasn't nearly as bad as I've kind of been, not led to believe, but like just heard. So yeah, I give it a tolerable. I did not want to chew my leg off and escape the living room when I watched this thing. So that's where I'm going. I think that's going to be a surprise. I think there's gonna be a lot of people out there listening going, you're a fucking idiot. I'm cool with that. I've been called worse. So let's go down to our scientist, the Pine and Comics scientist, Joe, and let's find out where Superman 4 lands on his.
And can I ask one last question before I get to my rating that I
absolutely
bring up? And this is maybe a Superman factoid all through the movies that I don't understand, and I just maybe never learned. How come Gene Hackman has hair the whole time?
Yeah, I think in the first movie they might allude to the fact that it's a wig. But in this one, they're just like, fuck it, he's got hair. Okay. And it can't be a wig because it's balding. And who would wear a balding toupee, right? So yeah.
Wear a comb over.
Yeah, really, right? Yeah, you're bald and you buy the toupee that's a comb over. Yeah, no one's doing that.
Okay, so I must say that I always grade on a curve. And I grade every movie I see, I sort of categorize them. Are they entertaining for what it is, which is how I generally look at the horror genre, and you guys sort of open my eyes. I know horrors open my eyes to analyze them more like regular movies. When I always say, well, it's a horror movie, what can I really get from it? Unless it's some magical mainstream thing, and I just get mesmerized by reviews or something. But in general, I sort of categorize movies as is it an art house movie, which is usually the Oscar-winning things, and I'm judging it on that scale. Is it an action movie? I'm judging on that scale. So, and I realize you guys just don't play around. You really hammer everything. I'm not sure I've heard anything you guys really like that much.
There's been some.
There's some out there.
I'm going to have to go with tolerable. I can't. It just was.
I knew you guys would both go there.
Yeah, I mean, I just so many things wrong, but it was nostalgia factor. I remember seeing it. I know there's a lot of people that gripe about it over time, but I felt like I couldn't believe how much I actually remembered from this movie, because by now I've sort of forgotten stuff from the 80s a little bit, but I really remember like the fight scene was as good as I hoped, but it was Superman fighting, and I like that. You mean
like kind of hugging and embracing like haphazardly and then falling over the edge of a building?
Yes. Or just rolling around the space dust on the moon.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say tolerable. So I'm glad. Right. I mean, I couldn't go any higher. Is there any more?
Oh God.
Normally on the Triple T episodes, I just assign them to our guests, but I hadn't seen Joe in so long. I gave him a list of like 5 or 6 movies. Joe chose this one. So I think there had to have been, right? There must have been some kind of nostalgia factor for you that you wanted to talk about this movie.
and there was, and I must admit the other choices, a couple of them I'd never seen, and I probably do want to see, but there's one of them specifically I just couldn't bring myself to want to watch ever. So when you said that, I was like, I'm not even gonna waste my time. I'll choose something at least I know I've seen. I can possibly enjoy a little bit.
I've got to ask, what was it?
Wild Wild West. I just cannot bring myself to watch that movie. I like the show originally a little bit from the 60s. I like Will Smith. I love Kevin Kline. I just can't do it. I talk about scientific errors.
I don't mind that one as much.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I'm gonna find somebody and we're gonna do Wild Wild West.
I mean, now I'll try to check it out then. I just I saw it. I was still when I was seeing everything in the theater, late 90s, and I just could not. I was like, I'm just not gonna.
That thing bombed, so you weren't one of the only ones that skipped it, that's for sure. All right, Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for accepting your new post as the official Pint of Comics science liaison. Again, I'll probably be messaging you with questions about maybe other superpowers in other movies we're talking about. If I have certain things, again, I know you're not an astronomer or anything like that, but I'm just lumping you right in with science.
Hit you with it.
Right. I know the experts to ask. So.
There you go. All right. So that was Joe. I'm John. That's Lloyd. Lloyd, why don't you do the thing we always do and tell everybody where they can find the pint, and then use those magic words that end this episode.
I will. You can find us at pintofcomics.com. Read some articles and some reviews. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. We put episodes out weekly. You can also check out the YouTube channel for podcasts and for videos. A lot of reviews on there. On Facebook and Twitter, it's at Pint of Comics. On Instagram, it's at Pint_O_comics. And remember, the only way to achieve world peace is you just got to want it hard enough. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.